to welcome you to ha ha ha. Yes. Now that we're recording, good afternoon. I'm Larry Moore, publisher of Broadstone Books, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the October 2022 edition of the Broadstone Reading Stage. Now, before I introduce today's readers, I want to note that this is the second anniversary, or almost 2 days off the second anniversary of this mostly monthly reading series, which began with an event in October 2020, hosted by Broadstone author Susanna Case, who's in the audience today. Hi, Susanna. Susanna organized our first Zoom reading because we'd had to cancel a planned live event in New York City that month, a casualty of the pandemic. And even as we've begun to resume live readings, including one in New York just a couple of weeks ago, also organized by Susanna, we're excited to have this opportunity to bring together authors from all over the country and beyond on our virtual stage. So thank you, Susanna, for starting us on this wonderful journey that has featured you, along with so many other great readers, as well as all you do to promote your fellow Broadstoners and other authors. So bless you, Susanna. I see you up there in my corner of the screen. Okay, so today we're featuring two authors and multidisciplinary, hard to say, multidisciplinary artists who are redefining the boundaries of poetry and language itself, both creating astonishingly original work while drawing on rich traditions of poetry and art created in response to times of great societal upheaval. We have Esteban Olarte, who joins us today from his home outside Mexico City, and Billy Cancel, originally from England, as you'll notice when he begins to speak, but he's coming to us today from the equally exotic wilds of Brooklyn. For likely as long as poetry has existed, there have been those who have attempted to define it and have resisted deviation from those definitions. Just recently, I was speaking with a retired lit professor who was bemoaning the state of contemporary poetry, quoting, a bit smugly, it might be said, Robert Frost in his declaration that writing free verse was like playing tennis with the net down. Well, with all due respect to the rich tradition of formal verse and the many poets who continue to practice it today, it's fair to say that over the last century and a bit, we've seen great poets who not only burned the net, they bulldozed the court, practicing poetry as an extreme sport. Two such poets are with us today. Now, as if Mexican-American author and artist Esteban Olarte's first book, the intellectually dazzling Transistor, had not been audacious enough, he essentially said, hold my tequila, while he went off to produce his latest opus, Bardo, a head-spinning hybrid work of art and poetry, words and graphics. He designed the page layout for the book, some of which he'll be sharing here in a few minutes. Now, the title suggests the Buddhist transitory state between lives on earth, and that meaning does apply to the wandering soul who narrates this journey across precincts of old Mexico City, a place both real and contemporary, as well as timeless and of the mind. But this is a walking tour only in the sense that Moby Dick is a treatise on whaling. It's almost impossible to describe the richness of its invention and observation. Adding a further creative dimension, Esteban has also set some of the poems to music, which can be accessed on his website from a QR code on the back of the book. It's a form hearkening back to the Beat era, and that's no accident, because his work draws on aesthetics and philosophical currents of that post-World War II movement. Like Olarte, Billy Cancel engages a wide range of creative disciplines, embracing poetry, performance, and visual arts, including the cover of his latest book, which I'll hold up here. Buttercup Tantrum Mutton Encore. But if Esteban is a latter-day Beat, Billy is the true heir to an earlier generation of countercultural artists, For in his Dadaist diatribe, he witnesses our broken world and narrates it back to us in equally broken language. In the face of man-made madness, he declares it time to abandon the search for clarity. Finding the best survival skill may be to be cracked in all the right places. As an English-born transplant, he wonders if he is destined to roam the US forever, dragging a mess of extension cords and one-spot adapters behind me. But this detachment serves him well as he surveys his adopted landscape. Now, while T.S. Eliot was no Dadaist, though they're contemporary, his observation that genuine poetry can communicate before it is understood absolutely applies to this volume. And by that measure, Cancel is a genuine poet. Just brace yourself for a wild and breathless ride. But before that, we're first going to hear from the bard of Bardo himself, Esteban Olarte. So Esteban, unmute and step up.
I think I've been unmuted the whole time, but I am ready to go. Bueno, muchísimas gracias a la gente que están hablando en español y mis amigos. And Larry, thank you again for another year and another book, and this opportunity to be with you guys as well. Stephanie, for everything that you've done, and everybody at Broadstone. It's absolute honor and pleasure. So I wanted to screen share, and I'll do that in a moment, because as Larry said, Bardo, which I have here, is a phenomenal construction that Larry and Broadstone has done. And as he mentioned in the introduction, the poems are written in a different fashion. And I feel like without the book, it's difficult to appreciate that, because when they're read, they end up sounding the same. So I think it's important to screen share to be able to see the presentation of the poems. And I'll do that now. So this is obviously just a PDF for today's reading, but again, the book is called Bardo. Bardo to me was, the Bardo Thodol is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I found it an absolutely incredible read, probably 20 years ago at this point that I first read it. But it translates literally as gap. And the gap in time and existence that people sometimes find themselves in after, a failed relationship or just being lost kind of in the flow of time and trying to discover, who they are and where they're supposed to be going or where they want to be going. And I found that myself in Mexico City. Mexico City is everything and nothing, and it's an absolutely incredible city, but at the same time there's a gap of experience between where you came from and where you're going. So for me, it was really important to use that knowledge of the Bardo Thodol, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, in terms of structuring the book as it is. And if anybody has any experience with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's 49 days of Bardo. And the interesting thing is that it's 49 days after you've died. So of course, transmigration and being born again. The idea in this book too is that there's been a certain death, and then there's 49 days, which corresponds to 49 poems in the book. And in the Bardo Thodol, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's also a bunch of flashbacks and stuff like that. So there's also portraits from a different time that correspond to the idea of Bardo as well. And I would say, obviously, it's not a complete appreciation for that book, because that's a religious text and I just manipulated and interpreted however I liked. But it was important to use that title because it was such an important one for me and my experience in Mexico City. So I'm going to get started with the first poem. And again, to me, the most important thing is to demonstrate the structure of the poem, because as we were talking about earlier, if I read it without anybody being able to see the structure, it'll probably sound like any other normal poem. But the idea here was to create parallelism and also perspective change. It doesn't work all the time. Maybe it doesn't work ever, but the idea was to have a main poem, which you'd see as part one, with a title, which is a real place in Mexico City. So all poems have place names and they're all true places. So the first one is La Romita. And the speaker icon indicates that on the back of the book here, there's the QR scan code, as Larry mentioned. You can go to the website and hear the poem put to music as well. So that's the idea. I think there's 10 poems that were put to music, not the whole book, but every one that has a speaker icon can be accessed through the website to be heard. So let me begin at number one, La Romita. We begin here where the antiquated Spanish aqueducts were abandoned to an inarticulate architecture we remain unacquainted with, bracketed by church buildings built with coquina, now alienated in allegory, where the place we replaced is displaced as the turntable spins to sublate the pattern. Every day re-arriving to, we arrive over again, every day at. Barefoot girls selling guayaba and cigarettes and singles in tin gardens do so under duress. Give thought to giving. Bonfires and painted oil barrels, candling tea lights on the chapel staircase, and homeless men, half naked in newspapers, in suits that didn't fit absolutely, are included out and boxed in. I was lost in thought and uninvolved, in a suit that didn't fit absolutely, sharing a bottle of red and brown paper on a park bench with two backpacking blonde women in army boots, doing surveillance on the scene, which was quite a scene of the scenic obscene, or from what I've seen from place to place. Aluminum flowers cut from pop cans on footpaths and sleeping mats, from a camera lens caked in egg yolk, a double red graffiti wall sun on a boarded window, like a sunspot burn mark licked out the bonfire, then photographed. So I'll go right to another boxed poem. And this would be 5. And then it's the idea is that it's meant to correspond to the 5th day, although again, it's interpretive, as it were. This is another place. La Fayuca is a type of market, temporary market that's set up in the street. So this is La Fayuca, Álvaro Obregón. Girl on metro this morning with wet hair, doing her eyes with a spoon, her skinny thighs in pink leggings under cutoff jean shorts, hostage to a new media audiovisual posture of movement, with a hash pipe keychain dangling in chain link from her blue jeans side pocket, but as a sort of Catholic girl iconoclast, lost in thought and uninvolved. Coming out at La Fayuca Obregón with a little help from the habit, kicking a Coca-Cola red can white, to a gentrified retro-colonial wine bar where we barbiturate in Pulp Fiction. Breakfast is wine, warm croissants with apple butter, caramelized pear with a hot plate of pigskin and braised Oaxacan palm hearts in a gentrified poor district on chairs of red polyethylene. Businesswoman in gray pencil skirt, her blouse clinging to her wet back, walking by with an uptown hauteur beside a sidewalk marimba band in Guayaberas, who picked up on the sachet of her slow thighs walking by slowing the song down to souvenir the sight. And the men at the bar came out of the bar, and the people at patio tables put down their pie charts. And when I came out the apartment, a woman in a house dress and apron was crying. She had pancake batter on her hands and apron and flour on her apron, just standing there doing time in the doorway with just the right amount of sorrow to sustain jouissance in the stranger eye, as two backpacking blonde women snapped camera phone photo stills to souvenir the sight. And we continue into day 6. Metro Insurgentes, if you guys have seen Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a lot of the movie took place at Metro Insurgentes, interestingly enough. 6 Metro Insurgentes. On Insurgentes Line 1 subway platform, in my straitjacket, on the periphery chain link windrow of the evening block of billboard and pulp time commute, only seeing and being seen, these idle, mindless hours of the day, these idols of the common now to communize us in public space, total theater. Alone with, at the edge of the platform, where the embossed lick of yellow rope light runs the platform, holding a handheld like a hand, some prosthetic that separates you from what the poor man is and you can't stand seeing in yourself. Ghost riding a lifted Echo BC with a 40 of mezcal in the front basket, cutting kitty corner across the evening on Chemical in a constant, uneasy, subliminal intercom static, as a man with rain god eye goggles bathed in gutters outside the station installation and public space, total theater. And in the street, the man who does handstands on beer glass for handouts, collects his bottled beer from people passed out in the park, breaking it apart on his back, bare-chested. And the mirror said, "To see the sublime, you must suspend common sense, if that makes sense." So as I said at the beginning, most of the poems are in boxes and they have numbers, and then in between here and there are poems that are basically like snapshots from a past life or remembrances of things past or flashbacks. This is one of them. It's called Basho. Basho. The night air is shot blue with plum shade. There is sheet lightning in the shake trees, and when sun-warm saffron rays, caught in the checkerwork of flailing tree leaves, salmon the park side path adjacent the cathedral altar, The skin of park air under pine and split willow gets shot red with cathedral shade lights. Tonight the moon is aureoled with moon dogs. Outside the silence, save a cricket and the jonquil green violet of hasta shades somewhere amid ground ivy. The sound of someone shuffling wooden clogs. Weathered footfall, foot falling. I'm admitting more people here because I'm a host, so give me a second. Good.
And I'll quickly jump in to say that people, as you're coming in, if you're not muted, please mute immediately on entry. It can be distracting otherwise. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Larry. And then again, back to a main poem. So basically day 8, another part of Mexico City, this time Lindbergh Amphitheater, which is a beautiful spot in Condesa. I think I should have said earlier that the book is also divided into 5 sections or 5 different neighborhoods in Mexico City. So of course it's a walking tour and you're going different places within these neighborhoods. So this is from part 2 and it's Lindbergh Amphitheater. Inside the stomach, walking in the vamped trance of evening traffic, by the decoy sundial on a psychoheographia downslope, in the springtime snow slush, prairie roads, and the blue air stained with insinuations of snow thaw, there in me, underneath me here, brick forests where the rock froths at an open pit in the road that is no longer road, but mythic earth unearthed, nude artifacts of city infrastructure. And I have to say this about Mexico City, anytime you see street construction, there's, you know, almost 1,000 years of layers of different types of society and civilization here. So this one always got me interested in that. Set it up on the side path beside the construction site with a belled cornet and apple core weed pipe, beside an absent partner shaded by lifetimes, looking to unlock unwanted knots hidden in lifetimes. And as they lift the laid screed layer, the unseen becomes unscreened, and it's hard to stomach. The repressed pipes and coke plastic, the telephone wire and plastic tubing, twisted pair self-similar in crisscross in plastic tubing at a buried street level, sidewalk buildings with basement windows soaked in rot wood from when they last laid it to street level, suppressed metal sewer pipes from the 1970s at a 70s street level, overlapping pulp newspaper artifacts of the 1970s in the resituation of denuded city infrastructure. I was incandescing in suggestions of light in shell crater construction sites, in colonial buildings encased in wall plaster, like a whitewash paint job, hanging in a blue hammock like a wobbling moon shell. And I guess I also didn't say that, Larry, I apologize. Some of these graphics are the metro stations or the public transit that you would use to find Lindbergh Amphitheater. So, and I used color for the PDF, but this would be line 1, Metro Chapultepec, and then Metrobus 3. So the idea again would be that if you were using this as a poet's guide for Mexico City, you could actually find this place independent of Waze and Google Maps and stuff like that, and those kind of things. So that's the point of the logos or iconography. Amsterdam is a street that used to be a horse track. So it goes in an oval, but it's hard to tell because it's so long that you're going in a circle. And I walked it a number of times, getting lost, but seeing the same places every 25 minutes. And you realize that you've basically walked in a circle. So, but Amsterdam is a really popular street now. It's an absolutely beautiful area in Condessa. 10, Amsterdam. It is there in the miscellaneous green, with the leaves reiterating a miscellaneous green by sundown in the brown air. There in the insistent descensa of succession between reality and belief, at death point, Russian olives in autumn, between reality and belief, an insistent descensa in duplicate succession. Sheets of plastic in crosshatch, a wall of lichen brick wet with green, polystyrene white sponge balls coming apart on the floor wood, concrete brick moss, walls of varied brick water stained and triturated coke and kitchen cellophane, with the background radio music in analog vinyl. I walk the tile work in the one room. A maze of floor mattresses allow passage in hopscotch. There are candles and hobble skirt Coke bottles on broke tiles piled into stands for Guadalupe candles, wax everywhere, the different colored waxes, triturated Coke and cellophane with julienne blue half straws, a girl warming tortilla in a room window. She thinks psychosis, de Clermont syndrome, even a slightly delusional parasitosis for the mollusk sludge she desiccates to snail with rock salt, some perceived threat in manholes, dank wood, rain, persecution by bus, people driving alone, redundant signage, that warm, free association of groceries and flowers. I have time for a few more, I imagine, yes? Yeah. So we jumped from day 10, basically, or poem 10 to poem 31 later in the book, and a different part of the city, but similar themes. So, Sor Juana Insurgentes. At intersection Sor Juana Insurgentes, in my plainclothes, Minuteman, last of the punk guerrilla programmers to assure the sure shot to shoot an analog polyvinyl from a Polaroid with roll film, if just to Velcro some wall with the wrong moment, the wall in the rooming house that has the window laced with photos taken from inside it, all of the same view, but taken at the wrong time. The sun on me like aged meat, with clouds like larvae or pulled cotton perforated by blue pinholes behind the booth of the Turkish chess player where the scene taking place was placed, but at the wrong time. Enter Godot on goofballs with a smoking gun instead of the sun, and they paid for applause with Popeye cigarettes. And when two wasps made love in the camera frame at the wrong time, no one could tell their gender. And a woman off stage selling shoelaces had Velcro shoes. When they asked her to act normal, she stopped picking her teeth. To two minds arguing over product placement, products that bring us purpose, with a proviso or two in tow. And the actors threw tomatoes at themselves, and the decision was reached in the moment of a glance from an audience unaware they were an audience, where I found a note on a piece of cardboard someone had jotted down. There will always be plenty of ass to go around. As a girl no more than 10, eyeing a Guadalupe altar, alternates her weight against the acacia it is nailed to. But I was too paranoid to Polaroid. Maybe jump to this one, bus window. So again, this is what ended up happening is that I really enjoyed using the boxes so much that I started putting the poems that were supposed to be different back into the boxed format. So this is one of them, bus window, slightly different idea, but
Good.
bus window. The overpass is a clear span project. The concrete truss is concrete reinforced with rebar, riarandel, and overlaid with olive and ornamental fig. Is this the difference that makes a difference? The architecture is agile, combusting with a recalcitrant scarp of retaining wall scarred with car exhaust. If the role of illustration is allegory and clouds are preconditions of rain, we can say that the only reason you have either is because you have both. And we can say that for almost airstrikes. Redundant handicap signage has its effects on hospital morale. Smoke machine fog at least once a year to simulate the meaning of mall fashion. An early burial for irises that iridescent. Tectonics, shifts in the structure of dress shirts. Karaoke dry ice, pocket size spermicidal hand cream. Daisy flowers, Fibonacci, the fence line, the thrown items, tennis shoes, badminton rackets, beer bottles, retain an energy of lift. It can be released as the energy in anything lifted isn't lost. These patio lights strung from I-beam, doubling down, dumb show originality over first world practicality. So cumbersome was the gun cotton, hashtag gun cotton, hashtag 20th century. We keep the ducks on the back deck. We cause a ruckus when they ransack. We got the goat to cut the grass. We've given thought to giving back. We've excluded the ornamental. We've made the absence of decor an ornament of decor. We opiate in minivans. Then we enter the buildings in a blur. And I'm gonna finish with this last quick one, which again would have been an in-between poem between the boxed poems. So for posterity, after weeks of rain and wet weather, we took to having wine in bed we'd left open overnight, took to meditating on nothing but our glance on its automatic judgments, fucking without the usual preliminaries, the sex of April. I wanted to write this to you in the morning when things are still fresh and clear in the mind, but failed to. I wanted to tell you that these last few days have been like a dying, and that in a few days I'll be dead. Don't worry, there'll be a period of limbo immediately afterward, something akin to a bardo. I'm trying to get Leonard Cohen to narrate it for you. Following that, I will be reborn,
See you later, Jeff.
resuscitated, my wrists cut loose of the crossbeam. Though for the day being what it is, I have nothing new to report. Yours in theory. So I'll finish there. And again, if you want to check out the music associated with some of the poems, please check out the website at eolarte.com. And yeah, thank you very much, Larry, for the opportunity and to read today.
All right.
You guys had a great time listening.
All right. Bravo, Esteban. An amazing reading. Yeah, now we get you back on the screen.
Yeah.
And I want to quickly say we had a little interruption, so I just want to check through and make sure that everyone is muted now.
I have reclaimed host, and I think I've muted everyone now, except Esteban.
All right, appreciate that. Okay, Esteban, so much we could talk about here, but I want to start on kind of a light note. I appreciate that you explained your use of Bardo, you know, in the Buddhist or Tibetan sense, but of course Bardo also has a Spanish meaning of bard, and how very appropriate for you in that regard. But I was kind of amused when I was looking up that meaning, that in I think particularly in Argentine Spanish, maybe elsewhere as well, that it has a particular meaning of being like slang for trouble or a mess or a tangle. And I also thought how very appropriate for this wonderful tangle of a book that you have. Did you think of the word at all in that context when you chose that as a title, or is that just a wonderful coincidence? Esteban, you need to unmute now because Stephanie turned you off. Okay,
I was muted there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, that turned out to be an interesting coincidence.
Yeah.
But a perfect one. But you know, to me, some of that, it's not coincidence, because it's like it's something that rolls with what you're doing. So to me, it ends up being, like as you just said, it ends up being a beautiful coincidence in terms of the mess that you make out of, I mean, for me, Mexico City, it can be a mess, but it can also be extremely clear and clear cut. And it depends on what you do with the experience. Absolutely. So
more seriously, obviously a work of this depth and complexity doesn't come out of a vacuum. And you talked about, again, the reason for Bardo, and that the way that informs it. But talk a little bit about some of your other inspirations and predecessors for a work like this. So the structure of the book, there's a lot. What the reading today just sort of gave a little bit of the flavor of all the complexity. As you were scrolling through, you could see where you had some of the footnotes and things. So
yeah.
Talk a little bit about how you structured it and kind of what led you to this form.
Well, I think a few months ago we had a meeting and I brought up the idea of psychogeography. And psychogeography and Bardo were kind of like, I couldn't tell which one to call it because it's kind of the same idea. But psychogeography was something that took place in France or in Europe in the 60s. And it was a way to reclaim the streets from basically wide avenues full of cars. And Mexico City is full of that. There's huge wide avenues that are impossible to cross and these kind of things. So what you end up having is separate small neighborhoods that function like little towns within the city. And then they're separated by uncrossable huge highway and stuff like that. So to me, it was a combination of those two ideas. Bardo, more philosophically, because I don't think you can ever represent it in a Western context, and that wasn't the idea, but some of the theoretical idea was there. But more so combining psychogeography with that idea, because now you're on foot and you're trying to make sense of a city that is enormous and virtually impossible to do so. But along the way, right? Along the way, you're going to discover so many different things externally, but at the same time about yourself and how you deal with different situations and stuff like that. And again, Mexico City is absolutely gorgeous in many ways. but it's also completely dysfunctional in others. Like it says in the introduction, I think, to the book. I mean, you have things that have modernized, but there's been a problem with modernization because it's gotten rid of the small corner store that was family owned. Now everything's a 7-Eleven or OXXO. And I know in the United States and Canada and other places, that's the norm now. But we all remember, I think at some point there was a ma and pa shop on the corner that sold abarrotes and groceries and stuff like that. So psychogeography to me was also enlightenment in terms of walking around and then creating poems around that. So for example, in the book, I would be walking through these places, mark them in my mind, go back on a Saturday, spend the whole Saturday there, take notes, right? And then write it the next week and just take all the notes and photos and stuff like that, and then write the poem the next week. The next Saturday, go back to a different place and do the same kind of thing. So psychogeography was primarily also about finding shortcuts in places that you already know about, right? So it was finding different ways to see the city and your community and the neighborhood in a different context. So that was a huge inspiration for me, and I hope that it comes out in some ways in Bardo. Absolutely.
It certainly does. And I really appreciate you leading us through that process of how you came to create a work like this that is so rich. And it just shows us there are so many ways to come to poetry. So that this is a great opportunity now for me to turn the floor over to our other poets. So Esteban, if you want to mute now,
Sure.
I'm going to welcome there's not many people that I would ask to follow a presentation like Esteban just gave, but I'm very confident in bringing to the Broadstone Reading Stage now, Billy Cancel. So Billy, I don't see you quite yet, but you want to unmute and step up.
Okay, thank you very much, Larry, and thank you, Esteban. That was fantastic, and we have much to discuss about psychogeography. Actually, that's one of my pet passions as well. So I'm going to read some poems from Buttercup, Tantrum, Mutton Encore. I don't like much talking between poems, so you know that one has finished and another is about to begin. I shall hold an object up to the camera, and that will give us an appropriate segue. So the first poem is Grey Wolves with Night Vision, Please Lead Us. Grey wolves with night vision, please lead us through those valleys, O code, beyond the warp, lift, and errant dribble we once pursued with salt and spoon, so through every dramatic cutaway, interior void, we'll always acknowledge the corn. In the Godspeed, I crept out of favor with myself, quick enough to follow their bold emotional cues. Full of treacle and brimstone, he maintained a high premium on sheer visibility. Every third week, our pockets keep getting a bad attack. It'll be swear o'clock soon and time to cuss again. Grey wolves with night vision, lead us through a valley of code. Other than that, not much doing. Let's pile up the agony all the way to smash. Let's pile up the agony all the way to smash, 'cause you and I agree like bells that swallow the anchor, back teeth well afloat, can't be the only other way about. Crypsis and mimecy got us in range of the briefest of contact with star apple tree, where celestial poultry kept their nests and sung a nonsensical rendition of already there, already there. Turns out we were just getting tackhead to go off to perch amongst green foliage, rose-coloured brambles, where the punchline is shellacked upside down. against a backdrop of psychedelic counterculture and the punchline shellacked upside down. Quite skeptical we are now of such phenomena because it's so often described as dotted with little odds and ends, while fighting empty space with a hairpin still seems to get an encore. With my chameleon diet and your keys to the street, we're a little bit on the go. Greased my gills with something not at all buttercup. You needed more humming October to get off your dip. We don't want a repeat of fuzzy illusion when I knew the inside of everything while you couldn't see the Joe Cabbage of it, or right up to now, but this game ain't worth the candle. Time to break out in a new place, more precise, full of piss and tantrum. Just a kind of need to make things hum. Just a kind of need to make things hum. Mock Sentinel versus Consecrated Downer. Mock Sentinel versus Consecrated Downer. With them, it was either confetti bush or toxic residue, which is why I much prefer being on the bag full of turnaround porridge than all doled up, ready for the seen and heard crowd. Any incidental low-life backdrop doing. Where will you get your special information? At the Emergency Museum in Bread and Cheese Land? Or from a comb with teeth fine enough to delouse hair? Dynamic region of overpasses, power lines don't quite come through. First day of dredging season, got showered in critter glitter when I asked for cosmic grit. Not the end of the world, though, only the edge of the earth. This quantum stuff is the Stilton. This quantum stuff is the Stilton. Since then, we've used no other. It helps me jump cut to cornfields so we may lie betwattled with your tray of moons far beyond the reach of the usual aggregate. Didn't know what, who's which from why's where. Low drag, full of empty, bag of fleas sat on that. I never took salt, just a drip of wet and warm, and to integrate with harsh light, bank-rolled false starts. If it ever looked like we hadn't got our change right, they gave us another moonful of mouth shine. Bear in mind, down County Road 106, just 30 minutes from the horror, we now maintain 3 cows and a self-perpetuating field. It's just not the clean potato to guzzle and gulp. Come, have a pickle. At point nonplus, your garret is empty. At point nonplus, your garret is empty. We might as well plough with dogs. Next time in the tone of a more playful, hardly Mr. Friday night, and grapple with the problem of 2 against 1 sometime. Tra-la-la. Sparse light, clear, symmetrical, undisturbed, waiting for the camera. During one bout of introspection, I gazed hard enough into and found it most binge-worthy. Thumb in bum, brain in neutral. Don't blow my cover, just sneak off the base. After you with the push, 1 boot to serve for either foot. Spruce forests, cattle pastures are all subject to perspective correction. It is imperative nymphs and bacchantes realize the nature of this situation and where they stand. Cheating the worms, ain't he a caution? Trying to speak holiday, where you can be licked into fits or feel the miss of the chill of it. Your password to Superstition Mountain will expire in 3 days. Your password to Superstition Mountain will expire in 3 days. Assimilate, internalize this, fringe your throbbing void with dunes, cliff footpaths, river mouths. Hands up, who wants to reconnect with something that barely was established. In such unmelodious cow horn, there's still, I promise, some hyper-mediated post-truth reality. Sure, we both caught feelings in bread and cheese land, became synonymously blurred, which explains our unenviable position in this metroplex population surge. Our cheerful frolics are becoming restless, self-critical, and so wrongly often associated with Trojan system fan zone. Do you want to change it now? Given that I'll look good a block away, you'll be 10 minutes ago, and Carnival Cruise Liner shall establish itself as base central metaphor. In area 51%, I'm hardly caking. In area 51%, I'm hardly caking. Despite our hard-driven techno Wild Hunt soundtrack, Dogman Nation's dismal repetition still gives you swash, backwash. So I wear my boxer shorts inside out and ward off whatever. Think about bait and switch, but really can't be fucked to bait. Elaborately constructed R factor then for this hanger-on who has let go but is stuck, is stuck. I should get sponsorship for these. Signal failure at Gremlin Junction. Signal failure at Gremlin Junction, most common in the fogging month. Longest shit train passing slow. Longest shit train stalled. Don't dynamite in champagne weather. Expect to get an encore. Structural antagonism courtesy of Great Mutton Fist. Too close to Carousel Arcade Entertainment Park to be scared of stupid, jarring, repetitive jingling sounds. We live in a checkered land of weird history and strangers. The Little Book of Flaking Out Too Early. The Little Book of Flaking Out Too Early tells me across town the goddess steps from a volcano, starts to dance with her worshippers, that not everyone who died by the hedge in Forest of Debt was once something in the city. How in any bizarre, cheerful alien atmosphere, there's shite at the bend of the funnel, so spoil me, dear, I'm section 8. The Little Book of Flaking Out Too Early suggests, despite me bleaching plague hymns upon the shore of some grey-white lake, and you leading an odd parade across the binary, repeat, overload, Dogman Nation stretches out towards the horizon, oblivious to our work. The Little Book of Flaking Out Too Early states copperphobia is the fear of exhaustion. Gimmick parade. Gimmick Parade, Power Herd, Quantum County, Harsh Corn, Cape Smirk, Bramble Overdrive, Hyper Cheese, Pigeon Tide, Neutral Roam, Greased Repeat, Chugging Drip, Lantern Leech, Broken Gut, Almond Mess, Unmelodic, Metroplex, Star Tension, Fern Thrust, Frolic Hunt, Variable Backdrop, Stored Month, Mute Factory, Fruit Tower, Cautious Holiday, Trojan Block, Encore Mutton, Hanger On, Buttercup Tantrum, Back Wash, Dismal Bait, Intense Out, Scatter Ache, Grapple Nymph, Imperial Flipside, Churn Risk, Premium Void, Scent Suckle, Cosmic Dredge, Chopped Tangle, Upsweep Fizz, Quantum County, Harsh Corn, Gimmick Parade, Power Herd. As outside raged a dick storm. As outside raged a dick storm, was glued to illustrated radio, crap Acadia rough music, not this, but something like it. The boom sizzle crowd was still about their cheesy victory, rather than minimal geometric structure, where there was a babysitter and a man upstairs with sap green curveball this hangers-on day. Your face shall host lively eyes and a snout-like mouth. Lesson learnt to stay on the crow, not stalking horse who got us back with the pixies, else would have gone Bismarck and served out a reducer because we were cracked in all the right places and could make us spare with grandma's teeth. They tell me build your own burger, but I want total control. Now only when the ducks are walking have I got it going on. Not enough West Coast turnarounds, too many blue hair shows. Not enough West Coast turnarounds, too many blue hair shows. Hence some fiending up by Powerline Ridge. Weak signal 1 bar. Say what you like, Angel of Revision. This is a bad go. Pokes, prods, demands attention, and I don't care for such dry mechanical difficulties, since I ran into problems, pixie fire the entire road green. All the flowers will sustain on the shrub up until the feast of St. Edmund, when a great storm of wind and rain shall blow and herald in the start of what shall become known as the age of no rooftop parties, Jack of the Dust. All that tooth music went right through my potato trap, straight into my knowledge box. My position is vicious void. Am going state lamb. Have got geographical bachelor on hold. He's asking, who's got a blind side? Hands up, who took the shine out? Filling myself all up on worm castles. Filling myself all up on worm castles, have learnt to cop it sweet and give out dirty orbs through attitude adjustment hour. Eat a serving of the great unknown. Get the green apple quick step. Call out. File the day under bonus damage. Screw up my face, distort my features, so I consume less oxygen and my heart beats slow, because in hot rain, hard town, I fried my beans frobnicating to the back of the room, while scanner and ignition eluded me. So I let that poppy show run its course, then got him down close till syntax gave way to speech, musical score, then noise. Alone in my high, dreary spot, above the searching mouths, my dial set to where did the road go radio. And what will I hear in the trivial songs of the corn bunting and yellowhammer? We need a piss quiz from you, no commercials, and a piss quiz. At the speed of snot, I swallowed the puck. At the speed of snot, I swallowed the puck to avoid getting glossy blue all over, straight from work, trying to integrate into the mold, rust, spore scene. Yes. Once you were a minstrel dragging 2 barrels of fun, then got kissed by Santa Fe and turned into a yard sale. By the time I learned to imitate the squeal of a rabbit, this game will already be in the refrigerator, a closed-off room where disinformation trickles applesauce from California to Maine. Stratosphere Joe is going Elvis, getting handed a bum steer, ending up in the unshadiest of spots. Besides this off-kilter giggle soup, I have little to offer but confused narratives. Don't want an encore, need a refund. Shut your lonely planet guide to K-hole. Shut your lonely planet guide to K-hole and the K-land Peninsula, where the knock-em-down rain is so compositionally sharp and auto-tongue wipers are aloof pessimistic, mumbling about inevitable synchronicity. From here to intercloud spack attack, your closer reading of the meatball beef shall reveal an impermeable geometric surface and an attack of the slows. Don't get in a snit if you're unclear on the concept of specialized offshore proletariat. Myself, I fell into afternoon farming to maintain a put upon alter ego, shacked up with a zigzag, the idea pot testing new types of multi-slack in lieu of my Thursday nights at the movies, a third voice, a watchman amongst the cows at dawn, whispers into a growing chorus of some of us have to eschew strict categorization and live here. We want to go out and walk with Lucy. Bumper to bumper, screaming demons. Bumper to bumper, screaming demons much influenced my writing style around the time I quit the pop band White Horse, because getting our sad on in such bold, simple compositions was all gong, no dinner. An ode to cracks discovered upon a power station reactor in southwest England proved to only be the start. Initially, you were all wisteria, snagged by a wait-a-minute thorn bush in Bigfoot County. Bright red clusters, bare wintered branches, your distinctive signature. Was on the road to Wanker's doom, then got word of Fist City velvet fog, checked your nerves and were all about that. Something germinating around the cackle factory bursts out in fairy lights. only to be distorted by drizzle bands of grey-white pigment before termination by sophisticated elements. That's what I'm aiming for. In this cosmos of monster heads, looped organ sample, who can emphasize a mouthful of jagged teeth? I am full of moss, laurel, rhododendron, lichen. Someone save me from old religious framework, new media constructs where flux stopper and this layered temporality, tis or bob. The story of Scorpling 40 going north at an advanced stage of tide out. Is it from the sun deck, overlooking Devil's Blind Spot? A huddle of silhouettes peered down at me. In that unsophisticated scam, I was the wrong riff. Faced with the punchline, inadvertently flipped. No one was going to put me on a pedestal or large steps rising off the ground and into the ideal fact. I am in the business of massive popping eyes and communicate across multiple platforms, tossing a coin into a gargoyle's mouth. This is the era of phenomenal flux, where about the peripheries buzz hungus fizzes about, and Cracker's eye view of a vast poem shall be cleared of vegetation, lit by electronics, highly abbreviated, hard-edged. Coming down from my wizard phase. Coming down from my wizard phase, surrounded by cake and booze, I discovered the merits of half belief and let the angst line go deep into the folkways of that swirling nocturnal blur, where he picked up his marbles and went home, and numerous forces, interests encounter each other, so you can be both all about that micro niche and go off some people. Billy No Bird and Johnny on the Spot are the same dynamic relationship structure. Two lamps burning and no ships at sea. Knotted composition reinforced by its own superlative. Sod them if they can't take a joke, because Idea Hamster won't unscrew this hospital hold. Commuting daily to and from, inverted commas, just for a chicken in a basket at the Stardust Hotel. I had the briefest of contact with psych abstract disaster scene now. It is morning in the swamp and the Olympics have left town. It is morning in the swamp and the Olympics have left town. It is morning in the swamp. Buttercup Tantrum Mutton Encore. Buttercup Tantrum, Tantrum Mutton, Mutton Encore, Grey Wolves with Night Vision, Grey Wolves with Night Vision, please lead us. Let's pile up the agony. Let's pile up the agony all the way to smash with my chameleon diet, and your keys to the street. A Skim City perch skeleton, a Skim City perch skeleton. That's me. Mock Sentinel versus consecrated downer. This quantum stuff is the Stilton. At point nonplus, your garret is empty. How are you not totally bewitched? How are you not totally bewitched by surveillance in this apple pie order? In this apple pie order, is there a place for us? Dab, 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 dab. Dab, 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 he said, smashing my face in. It's Ozark 30. It's Ozark 30. Even even in Pissant Empire. Your password to Superstition Mountain will expire in 3 days. No, your password to Superstition Mountain will expire in 2 days. Talked myself out of this year's UFO conference. Smirking long-eared creature flying bear composite. Smirking long-eared creature flying bear composite won't fight 1 yard. 1 yard of toasted cheese in area 51, in area 51%, in area 51%, I'm hardly caking on mute. I've been through the elephant, signal failure at Gremlin Junction. Keep faking the funk, this is Route 1, keep faking the funk, this is Route 1, round 2, Gorse Tangle on my couch, the little book of flaking out too early, 4 seasons in square one, reconciling fireworks on the drain with a dead done for look. Buttercup tantrum mutton encore, buttercup tantrum mutton encore. And congratulations, you have survived 27 minutes, 32 seconds of Billy Cancel.
Oh my effing God. I'm rendered almost speechless, which almost never happens. Billy, if ever there was a poet, a performer that I needed to hear the words presented that way, that was astonishing. So I'm going to try to I'm going to try to collect myself now and have a little bit of conversation about what we've just experienced. I want to consider the aesthetics and purpose of noise and nonsense. When I read, and especially now just hearing your work, experiencing your work, I think about a world racked by violence of war, countless displaced refugees, millions dead from pandemic, a time of great economic inequality, social dislocation, accompanied by disruptive new technologies, especially in the realm of communication and entertainment, that by extension lead into propaganda. And of course, I'm speaking about the first couple of decades of the 20th century. I'm thinking about the era right after World War I, which gave rise to Dada. And to me, it's almost uncanny how that maps to the present moment. So you make the strongest case I know of anyone for a revival of that whole Dadaist movement as a way of dealing with our present moment. So so trying to put this in form of a question, how informed are you? How much do you relate directly back to that previous generation of Dadaists? To what degree are you inspired by or shaped by their work in creating yours?
Yeah, like very much so. And you can see, you can see a consistent line when you go back from 21st century back down through the 20th century. And then even before, I was really influenced when I was living in the UK with those enormous volumes of like the history of the poetics that Jerome Rothenberg did. And he even did a 3rd volume that was like pre-Dada. So I was looking at like experimental texts, going back through the centuries, and probably something Esteban has picked up on with his work as well. So yeah, certainly a convalent line. It can be a bit dark, but I also try and maintain ultimately a celebration of language.
Yes.
Trying to have fun with the medium at the same time.
Oh, I think we got that today from you. I mean, I was riveted by every syllable today as you were going through your presentation, and one of the comments was on the cadence of your language, and yes, you're dealing with fundamentally very dark subject matter, and yet you're doing it in a way that's just so energetic and thus hopeful. You know, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing one of your live performances, and especially where you wear masks and costumes and such. But just from the photos I've seen of you, I'm taken right back to Hugo Ball and Café Voltaire, and again at that early Dadaist period. It would be easy for someone to listen to what you just did, kind of in the same way people look at Jackson Pollock paintings and say, well, anybody could do that. I think it sounds simple. Talk a little bit about your compositional process, because it's not easy to do what you just did.
Well, first off, what I would say is sometimes like this figurative poetry is not for everyone, and it's much like the Marmite I picked up. You either love it or you hate it, as the catchphrase goes. But I'm fine with that. But no, it's a number of things. I call the poems, I call them each one an individual microclimate. So I'm basically putting in, like, it can be like archaic language. It can be like it can be stuff from like artistic descriptions. It can be like something from a song I've written. And I essentially like blend these into their own little, tiny little, well, like microclimates with their own conditions and precipitations and a lot going on within a confined space. I always have my poems are no longer than a page long. So I am making the concession that, like, look, if you're going to deal with this, you can see the end. Like, we're going to go from the beginning to the end, but I will get you there reasonably quick. So it's lots of source text. It's a lot of, like, sometimes it can just start with like just a phrase I find that I really want to say, but like I can't really do in general life and behavior. So I may find a way of I would use that as a jumping off point, and then we build from there. But like microclimates, when I make them, there tends to be a 10 or so going on at the same time. I try to do batches of 6 or 12. But then you've got to make sure that you don't just write the same poem 12 times. So beware.
Fabulous to hear all of that. I think just to see how you do work like this, and I have to say I did like when you held up the Marmite, because I thought that was appropriate. And I want to do a quick shout out to my partner Stephanie, because Billy, when your manuscript arrived, Stephanie was the first one that said, oh yeah, we're going to do this guy. It was just so completely out of left field, so unlike anything that we'd ever gotten before, have ever done before. So good on you, Stephanie, for having spotted Billy.
Thank you, Stephanie.
She
My
was
absolute pleasure.
Yeah, she was definitely your advocate here when your work arrived. We are almost at the end of our time, but I'm gonna like open it up just very briefly to our audience. If there's anyone who has a question or a comment for Billy or for Esteban, Esteban, you can unmute as well. If there's anyone who would like to add anything here at the end before we take us out here today.
I'll start with Billy's reading. Absolutely phenomenal, and to me, it's like it's a great demonstration of theatrical prosody. No, I mean, it's just using every available but text, but also, I mean, I loved the image showing of different products, but also your expression, Billy, while you're reading is so intense and beautiful in that sense, because it's like I'm hooked into what I'm doing right now and fuck everything else and whatever it is. So absolutely phenomenal reading, Billy. Thank you so much for sharing today and allowing me to be a part, honestly.
Oh, well, I just want to say that I think my introduction, you two proved my point at the beginning about taking poetry in dramatically different directions, as both of you do in your work, and also practicing poetry as an extreme sport, as we had ample evidence of that today. So Last call, if there's anyone else who has anything they'd like to say or comment. Indran, I see you unmuting. Do you have something to say?
No, I love that the poetry is an extreme sport. I love both these poets, and I love this amazing direction Broadstone is taking with them. I mean, it's opening up the universe, and it's saying that different voices can live together in peace and harmony within this metropolis, this crazy metropolis of the world, which is Mexico City, which is the universe. But yet there are different and voices to discover and celebrate. So it's a day of celebration. Thank you, both of you.
And thank you, Indran, for saying that. Yes, it would be safe to say that Billy and Esteban have taken Broadstone in a dramatically different direction from some of our other work, and that's quite intentional. And by the way, stay tuned. Expect to see more of that kind of work coming, because we're very excited here about what poetry can be. All right, and I just want to note of the people in the room, I see we have Billy's mom, aunt, and uncle are identified as being on camera with us today. And I just want to say, I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did, because we're very proud to have Billy in our family now, and I know you're proud to have him in yours. All right. Let's have a round of Zoom applause for both of our readers today, Billy Cancel and Esteban Olarte.
I want to say a special thank you to Joey for the comments and for showing up. I appreciate it. And of course, mi amor, Noriela, que está aquí. Gracias, amor.
All right. And Susanna, I'll say again, as I did at the beginning, thank you for getting us started on this wonderful journey that we're on. And it's so good that you're here for it today, here 2 years on. I want to quickly note, a few of you are new to us today, and plus a lot of my Broadstone family. So we do this pretty much every month. And our next reading, if you want to go ahead and mark your calendar now, on November 19th, again at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we'll have our next Broadstone Reading Stage event, this time with we're turning the stage back over to the women. We had the men today, so it's time that we turn the stage back over to the women. And we have 3 new books being presented by Suzanne Cohen out on the West Coast, and Lowinger and Allison Palmer. And we're very excited to hear from the 3 of them. So please be back with us in just a few weeks on November 19th for that. And meanwhile, go out and enjoy all of the poetry that's taking place wherever you are. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here again. So Stephanie, I'm going to throw it back to you, and you can take us out.
All right, great. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to